Hey, gang, coming up on our Finding Better podcast, it's Veterans Day. I'm going to talk with you a little bit about what that means and share some stories with you, some amazing, amazing stories that are going to blow your mind. The veterans are amazing. They're the ones that are out there fighting for us, dying for us, protecting us. And this is the day to celebrate. So please join us. Please subscribe. Here we go. Hello, 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 and welcome back to our Finding Better podcast. My name is John Suzuki, and I am your host. And this is where we share real life experiences of things where we've been there and done that and finding better in our own lives. It's a safe place to come. It's real information. It's not theories. It's not academics. And sometimes the best way to success is to copy it. And so thank you for joining me. And please subscribe. Please share this. Listen, happy Veterans Day. It is Veterans Day today. And, one of the things that occurred to me is that a lot of people might not even know what Veterans Day is, right? And so, what is Veterans Day? The whole idea of Veterans Day is to honor military veterans who served in the United States Armed Forces. That's the Army, Navy, Air Force, Marines, now the Space Force, the Coast Guard. And, the question is, why is it important? Why is it important? I'd like to share a couple of stories with you and to give you some perspective on why I thank every soldier and veteran I encounter for their service. And I hope you will too. Sorry. One of my absolute favorite airline is Alaska Airlines. And one of the things they do is they welcome active members of the military on board in every flight first, and it's really cool. And so, the fact of the matter is that these folks fight for our freedom. They have always fought for our freedom. They protect us from those who want to do us bad, who want to attack us. And really, when you think about it, we are living the best life that history has ever had to offer right now. The life that we have and the conveniences that we have available to us and in the world and the opportunity and the abundance is such that no kings in history have ever had for themselves. It's really interesting when you think about it. They didn't have plumbing, they didn't have air conditioning, they didn't have grocery stores where you could pick up meat off a shelf. They didn't, I mean, I could just go on and on. They didn't have toilets. And but beyond that, we live in a world of abundance that has really never happened in history. And so we have all that available to us. And I can argue that we might not have it all available to us if not for our veterans. And so I ask myself all the time, what have you, John Suzuki, ever done to keep our country safe and free? And, I'm going to talk a little bit more about that a little bit later, but I want to talk to you about my dad. So my dad was a veteran of World War II, and he was in the United States Army. Now you just go, okay, so was he Japanese? Yes, he was Japanese American during a time when America was fighting Japan and he was in the United States Army. And he also joined the Army at a time when this country, our country, was incarcerated, had incarcerated 122,000 people of Japanese ancestry, most of whom were American citizens, in concentration camps right here in America, scattered across the badlands of America. And 50% of all those people were children and babies. And the only reason why they were thrown into these concentration camps was because they looked like the enemy. Children and babies. Can you believe that? And so my dad was able to join the army. It was kind of an exceptional thing. And his first job was digging holes that were 6 feet wide, 6 feet deep in the garlic farms of Gilroy, California. And once he dug the holes, His job was to fill them up and then dig holes again. And he was guarded by American soldiers as an American army soldier. Kind of crazy, right? But my dad eventually became part of a top secret military operation called the Military Intelligence Service. Again, top secret. This was a group of Japanese American soldiers who became negotiators, interpreters, and interrogators for the United States Army in the war against Japan. And so they fought in the Japanese in the Pacific Theater. The crazy part about that was back in those days, the Emperor of Japan considered anyone of Japanese ancestry to be a citizen of Japan. And so these guys were captured. They were not only imprisoned and many times tortured, but they were executed for being traitors to the emperor. Pretty crazy stuff. And it was the only time where these American soldiers, these Japanese American soldiers, had to have armed bodyguards to protect them from American soldiers mistaking them for the enemy and killing them, right? It's a crazy time. But they were so effective in intercepting communications, interpreting, interrogating, that the MIS, the Military Intelligence Service, was credited with saving 1 million lives by shortening World War II. Pretty cool, right? But then you say to yourself, but look at how many thousands of people died during the atom bombs that were dropped on Hiroshima and Nagasaki, right? I'd like to give you a couple perspectives on that as well. And this is really, really going to blow your mind. One perspective comes from my grandmother, who was in Japan during World War II. It was in 1973 that my sister and I met her. I was 12 years old at the time. And as we were walking up to her house, my grandmother came out of the house, got down on her knees, and she bowed to my sister and me. We had no idea what was going on. And so my mom later explained that my grandmother was thanking us for America. And we're like, what do you mean thanking us for America? She said that as terrible and as bad as those atomic bombings were of Nagasaki and Hiroshima, if they didn't happen, we wouldn't be there at that moment having that conversation. And here's the reason why. Everybody in Japan was told to kill themselves if the Americans came and the Americans invaded. My mom's family was a samurai family, and each one of the 6 kids had their own samurai swords. And if the Americans came and attacked, they were to end their own lives with those swords. Now, with the bombing of Hiroshima and Nagasaki, the emperor immediately surrendered and surrendered unconditionally. According to my grandmother, that saved her life. That saved my mom's life. That saved everybody's life. And if not for those bombs, I wouldn't be here in front of you having this conversation. Kind of crazy, right? And so millions and millions of people were saved. As bad as those bombs were, my grandmother said, if that didn't happen, we wouldn't be alive. The other thing that's really interesting about those bombs was that it ended the war very immediately after they were dropped, right? And what's interesting was that the United States, England, and Russia were allies. And Russia wanted to attack Japan and wanted to take over part of Japan. But when the war ended, right, Russia could not attack anymore. And so Japan remained whole. If the war continued and if the war was took more time, the Russians would have had more time to attack Japan. And today, if that happened, parts of Japan today would be considered parts of Russia. Kind of mind-blowing, right? And so you can check this out. But those are just two perspectives. As bad and as terrible as it was in terms of the way the war ended, it could have been a whole lot worse with a whole lot more casualties and a whole lot more death and destruction. So what about Europe? Let's talk about Europe. I wrote my book American Grit to honor Americans who were incarcerated in American concentration camps. Again, solely because of their Japanese ancestry. They looked like the enemy. Now, the amazing thing about some of these people who were thrown into these camps was that some of them volunteered from those camps to fight and die for America during World War II. And they joined a segregated army unit of Japanese Americans called the 442nd Regimental Combat Team that actually went on to become the most decorated war unit in the history of the United States for its size and duration. And the upshot of this is that as these guys volunteered out of these camps, you would think that, okay, well, their families would be released. No, no, these guys went off to war and their families remained in those camps. It's just crazy. When I first learned about this, I said, who in their right mind would do such a thing? Who would volunteer to fight for the United States Army who put them and their family in those camps to begin with? Well, these guys did. And beyond that amazing thing of having volunteered and become the most decorated war unit in the history of the United States, the big message of these guys is that they never blamed anybody for their circumstances. They didn't blame the United States government. And the thing about blame is that when you blame somebody for your problems, you are becoming a victim and you are surrendering your personal power. Okay? Because you're blaming somebody else. These guys didn't do that. Instead, they took responsibility and action for their lives and made the world better for generations to come, including for me. My dad fighting in the Pacific against Japan, these guys in the 442nd fighting in Europe, they all made the world better for all of us, for me, for you, for generations to come. And the story of these guys in Europe is an amazing, amazing story. I'm not trying to sell it to you. In fact, you can get it for free. You can download my book, American Grit, for free on my website, johnsuzuki.com. Okay? Please download it. Please read it. You're going to be inspired. You're not going to believe it. And I promise that you will be amazed. You will be inspired. And it's all true. Okay? So finally, we won World War II. And here's another perspective for you. As I mentioned, that Russia was our ally. All of the countries that they liberated, they kept. And all of those countries became part of what became known as the Soviet Union. A lot of you guys remember the Soviet Union. Okay? They Poland, Czechoslovakia, Romania, Hungary, what we called the Eastern Bloc countries. Okay, Russia kept. They wanted to keep Germany, but we negotiated with Russia and said, "You're not going to take Germany." So we split it. Right? We split it. It became East Germany, which became part of the Soviet Union, and West Germany, which became part of Western Europe, free Western Europe. So, because what did we do? We liberated France. We liberated Italy. We beat Germany. Okay, we let them keep it. We didn't take over any of those countries. Half of Germany, East Germany, became part of the Soviet Union. The other half became West Germany, which was an independent nation. France was independent. Belgium was independent. Italy was everybody got the Baltic states were we gave all we asked was a little bit of property to bury our dead. That's pretty damn cool, right? And when you think about, when I think about history and I think about the men and women who protected us and continue to protect us and fight for us and fight for our freedom and fight for us as a country, we owe them a lot. Since the beginning of World War II, over 500,000 American soldiers have died and made the ultimate sacrifice. They died. Their life ended, and they died for our freedom. They died fighting for us and protecting us. And in addition to that, over 1 million were injured or maimed. And so today, you look at when you look at any soldier today in uniform, you're looking at a volunteer. I don't know if you knew that. They're all volunteers. Okay? The last time the draft ended in 1973, over 50 years ago. So when you look at these people and you see these people, just know that they're volunteering. And part of what they're volunteering for is to die defending our country. And so when going back to the question of what have I done to keep our country safe and to keep our country free? Like most of you, I didn't join the military. I could have, but I chose a different path. But I do everything I can today to support our military. I fly the American flag on every national holiday. I honor and I thank every veteran I come across for their service every time I see one. So moving on, I hope you'll keep all this in mind and be truly grateful, for those who served as they keep us safe and our country free. I see these guys hopping on airplanes. I don't know where they're going, but a lot of them are going to harm's way. And, I've spoken to some who were being deployed to Afghanistan back in the day or going to Iraq, going to really icky places. And they're going there for us. So, again, if it's in your heart when you see these guys and you see these women, thank them for their service. Okay? That's what Veterans Day is all about. And yeah, that's all I have to say. All right. So thank you for listening. I love you. God bless you. And God bless the veterans of, oh my God, I messed up my last line. God bless the veterans of America, all of you. Please subscribe. Please share this. See you next time.